Wrestling's like, it's really hard before the year. I'm like so excited to get to it. And then like right in the middle, like January to February, I'm like, I just want this to be over, honestly. Like, it's getting hard, but then like you gotta realize like all your state tournaments, your qualifiers just coming up, so you have to like push through that part. But I love CrossFit. CrossFit and wrestling are like buddy.
The fitness movement is brought to you by Zor Fitness. We offer coaching and individualized program design, as well as educational content for coaches and athletes. It's all at one place, zorfitness.com. How you guys feeling at this point in the weekend?
I'm not excited to run after all the legwork we did.
It really wasn't that much. It was actually more upper body dominated.
True. But
just some front squats.
Those front squats, front squats just hit me different.
This is like one of my least favorite things is like front squats in workout.
Front squat and workout. Oh,
you just can't.
It blows
like,
my back up sometimes.
Yeah, it gets your back, but then also like it's sitting on your chest, so it's hard to breathe, and then it's like obviously tough in the legs.
Yeah. Even a lighter weight, like a lighter moderate weight, to me, like it blows you up during a workout. Like a 115, 135.
Because then you can cycle it fast, and
it makes you breathing way harder.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You don't want to like pause to the top and like take an extra second to breathe when you just want to keep moving through reps.
I gotta say, I'm feeling great right now.
Yeah. So you guys are from Somerset, PA. Mm-hmm. About how far is that from Williamsport where we're at?
So we actually live in Myersdale.
Okay.
It's about 20 minutes from Somerset.
Okay, gotcha.
From here, we're a little over 2 hours, about 2 hours and 15 minutes. So about an hour below Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm. You guys own an affiliate, CrossFit Revival?
Correct.
Yep. When did you open that?
It's been about 3 years now. The end of April, 2021. So end of April, beginning of May, 2021. I've actually owned a gym though for, it's been almost 9 years. 2015. Yeah. So almost 9 years. I had a gym called Rack City Fitness. That's
your email address.
Yeah. Yeah. So that there was just like a regular 24/7 access gym where anybody just came in, got a membership. We had plenty of equipment for them to use. So I owned that previously before we became a CrossFit affiliate.
So did you own it then, or were you just operating it?
No, we owned it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then a good chunk of your membership like transferred over?
No, actually not at all. So
wow.
It's kind of a long story, but at the end of it, I had already started training CrossFit, and we had just a little bit of talk about possibly opening the first CrossFit affiliate within Somerset County that we live in. Mm-hmm. And long story short, they sold the building. It was never offered to us, and we actually found out from another gym member that they sold the building.
Oh my gosh. They're like, hey, by the way.
Yeah. So it ended up kind of making that decision for us without us actually making the decision to move on. It was time to move on. So then when that happened, it was pretty much just, okay, like let's go full forward or, straight into this and make it happen. And that's pretty much how CrossFit Revival started. We had already been talking about it, been training CrossFit. I had started group classes as well before that. But we only took with us
6 to 12 people.
Yeah, there wasn't very many members at all when we first opened CrossFit Revival. We took a few with us that wanted to continue with what we had already started. Yeah. But we had over 100 members at that previous gym. And then they actually made another gym in that building. And some of them went to that gym then. Some of them went to a different gym. But we only took a couple. So.
Yeah, and then me and him, we worked out in the morning. Like from, I'd say for like 3 years, you'd say, working out in the morning, just me, you, and Tyler.
Me, you, and one of my friends at the time named Tyler. We would go down. He would go down with us before school, and like 5 a.m. And then we would work out, and then take him home, get him on the bus, and everything. But it was CrossFit training back then, or functional fitness training back then before we were even an affiliate.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a lot of gyms that obviously do that, and yeah, whether they're actually doing CrossFit and just calling it something else, or people are just doing the CrossFit at commercial gym, which can be tough at times. But
Yeah, that's where it was too for us, because I started transitioning things over to more CrossFit equipment. So like we got a rig, we had rings, we had some turf there that we would use not only for sled pushes and different things, but handstand walking and different things. And it was really hard to actually have like a class or anything going on and then have regular members in there. You're like trying to do thrusters and you have somebody like 2 feet away on a bench or a
preacher curl machine.
Or preacher curl, yeah.
You're like, you're doing pull-ups now, so you're done with this bar, right?
Yeah. But yeah.
So, Dubby, did you start CrossFit when, like, before you guys had opened CrossFit Revival, or
Yeah.
had you any experience with it before then?
I started working out when I was 7 years old. I'm pretty sure I was 7 at the time. We did it was kind of like a mix of CrossFit and like bodybuilding and plyometrics. And then like when I was about 10-ish, I actually started doing CrossFit with him and his buddy. And then ever since then, it's just been straight CrossFit.
Maybe this is like good context for people. Like, again, I don't want to say you just do CrossFit. You don't just exclusively do CrossFit.
Yeah.
So what else sports wise you got on the table?
Sports, I've played baseball, I wrestle, and I used to do football, and I played soccer for a year. So, but wrestling and baseball, it's hard to balance those two with CrossFit. So most of my times now it's like school, practice, gym.
Yeah.
Just shove it in.
Yeah, the tough thing is that like winter is obviously wrestling, spring is baseball, and then like that's also when like the CrossFit season's like ramping up.
Yeah.
So
transitioning from wrestling and baseball is like right during the CrossFit Open.
Right. So like you literally got back from
States and did 24.3.
Yeah, and you got like a few hours of sleep and then basically had to do that on the Monday morning.
Yeah.
So really tight turnaround. But yeah, I mean, that's the sort of thing that like you're having to navigate. And you mean you guys as a whole family, because it takes, yeah.
Absolutely. A lot of the times, so like for him, and I've always been big on it, we pushed wrestling a little bit, probably too much when he was a little bit younger. And we wanted him to do it more during the summer, and because he's a good wrestler, and we wanted him to continue doing that throughout the year. And we saw that it just wasn't good for him. There's certain kids that might be able to do that and really dedicate like the whole year to a certain sport, but I didn't see that with him, and I felt like he was losing a little bit of passion for it. So that's where we stepped back a little bit and wanted to make sure that we're balancing that of everything that he wants to do, and rather than just focusing on one primary sport. And a lot of days, like he said, baseball, wrestling, school, balancing all that together. A lot of times you're only training 2 days during the week for CrossFit. And then on the weekends, because we normally have much more downtime to be able to fit more training in, that's Saturdays and Sundays we try to make training days. But I let him dictate everything. So meaning if he don't want to go to the gym, that's fine with me. If he don't want to wrestle throughout the summer, that's completely fine. Actually, this year, you didn't do any wrestling like leading into this wrestling season. Once last year ended, no wrestling at all. Went through baseball, did more of the CrossFit training, and then he decided to pick up wrestling again, obviously, once the school season came into play. But I let him dictate everything there. I look at it as to, it don't really mean a whole lot if he pushes really hard for the next 5 years and then never wants to do CrossFit after that or train after that. I want him to be my age. I'm 37, and talking to me about CrossFit games and his training and different things like that. And I feel like us as parents, if he doesn't get to a point to where he wants to continue that later in life or pursue the things he likes, then we've kind of failed as parents. Like, I want him to dictate that, and regardless of what we'd like to do, I want him to decide that for himself and then just support him with it. And Jaci's a big part of it as she comes to the gym at 5 a.m. I coach that class every single day. So she comes to the gym, she goes to work. Pretty much as soon as she gets home from work, she's picking him up from school on his training days, bringing him back to the gym, because the way my schedule works, I'm not home to be able to take him to and from the gym. So it's pretty much a whole team effort, to be quite honest, like to make it all work. And it has to be for us. So, and obviously you would know as well, anytime you own a gym, like you got to be available more than what you really realize it before you open a gym.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of times to where it looks like maybe I have some time to be able to pick him up from school or bring him over to the gym. And then it just doesn't work out that way, as the day plays out. So.
Or he forgets he has to do it.
Or I forget if I don't put it on in my Google Calendar.
That's literally, I'm a slave to Google Calendar.
You have to be, when you're really busy, I have to have it all there.
I make him put the kids' schedule. I send him the picture of their sports schedule, and I'm like, put this in your calendar. And the other day, he was like, I thought there was a baseball game or a track meet. And I was like, no, I sent you the schedule.
Yeah, I do good with, give me a piece of paper in front of me, and then I'll do it. If it's a picture, I'll get busy with something else.
Yeah, so it just gets lost.
The funny part is he probably doesn't even know I have a baseball game tomorrow.
Yeah,
I honestly don't.
Until that notification pops up.
Yeah.
We got to get ready. Well, yeah, I mean, it's been pretty cool to just see how things play out, and obviously having success in multiple sports. This is sort of a conversation we had with you and your dad was like how seriously are you taking each of your sports, and what sort of matters the most to you? Is that way, just for me as your coach, it's a good background to understand how much should I push you to for example get all your sessions in. If it's well, actually I just want to do CrossFit sometimes, and I really want to focus on wrestling right now. It's well, okay, that obviously helps, like you said, kind of letting him lead a little bit, and then it's I don't want to push the CrossFit side on you more than you want it to be a priority, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where have you've been enjoying, and this could obviously change over time, and maybe it has already for you, but what do you find yourself enjoying most in sports right now?
Wrestling's really, it's really hard for before the year. I'm so excited to get to it, and then right in the middle, January to February, I'm I just want this to be over, honestly. It's getting hard, but then you gotta realize all your state tournaments, your qualifiers just coming up, so you have to push through that part. But I do CrossFit's I love CrossFit, but it's baseball. Baseball is probably my least favorite, I had to say, but I still love baseball too. Pay attention to MLB, all that stuff. But yeah, it's probably CrossFit and wrestling are buddy.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, even for me, not to interrupt or anything, but that, as I've said plenty of times, that me and Jaci, I'm more of the talker, but we talk behind the scenes all the time. That's both of us. One of the things we really liked in the first conversation we had with you is, number one, you had a wrestling background, so you know what goes into that sport. Yeah. And number two is your willingness to balance the CrossFit training with baseball season and wrestling season. And kind of as Dubby was saying there, wrestling season, it don't seem like it's that long when you have it on a calendar, but when you're in
it's long when you're in it day to day.
Yes.
The January, February thing's usually when his weight is starting to get close.
Yes.
That's where he breaks down a little bit. He'll be good in the beginning, and then he's starting to grow, and then he's he gets to this point.
You got no body fat. It's cold all the time, and you're I don't even feel like going outside today. It's dark all the time.
When you start looking though at not only the end of the wrestling season, but then you start looking at, okay, now it's the beginning of the CrossFit season. Mm-hmm. That's where you kind of have to start balancing that. As you were saying, the season's long, so that motivation factor of staying up for the state tournament, the district tournament, the regional tournament, and then also smack dab in the middle of all that, you have the Open, which this year's only his second year actually competing in the Open. He's been doing it for 4 years now. but trying to navigate that. And in all honesty, like to me as a father, like it doesn't matter how far he makes it from the open to the quarterfinals to the semifinals, as long as he's pushing himself and doing the best that he can. Like that's all that I can really ask for. But do I want to see him perform well?
Yeah.
Yes. So like 24.1 when he didn't meet his expectations, or I try not to have a whole bunch of expectations for him. Just it is what it is.
Yeah.
But when you see what he's done previously, like I do unfortunately have expectations. But one of the things I look at, and maybe even you as a coach, like his coach, is okay, 24.1 didn't go the way we wanted it to, but then to bounce back 24.2 went like amazing for him. And to really do good there is how you respond to something that doesn't go your way.
Yeah.
And to kind of have that short memory, which I think that wrestling has really helped with, a lot. And he hasn't done a lot of in-person CrossFit competitions, but I do think that also is relatable in the sense of you have a bad event, you kind of got to shake it off, give yourself a couple minutes, and move on.
And personally, like up until the last like 18 months, I haven't competed a ton like in-person competitions in CrossFit, and like wasn't really traveling around. I was just did some like local stuff, so it was like very recreational. But like I definitely felt like my CrossFit career or my wrestling career prepared me for CrossFit competition, because it was like it's very similar in terms of structure, because it's like you warm up, especially like a local competition, because it's like probably smashed into one day. You got like 4 or 5 events, and it's like every hour, 90 minutes, you're doing a new event essentially, and it's like really high stress environment, noisy. It's sort of just like a wrestling tournament, really,
absolutely.
right? And a lot of the events are like 5 to 10 minutes, and because they're like tend to be shorter, higher power output stuff. So it's like literally like wrestling.
Yep.
So it's like,
especially the part of like as soon as you get done with the match or an event, you gotta like cool down right away, eat a little bit, and then get your body ready to perform again.
Yeah, and a lot of people really aren't used to 2 things, like physiologically, like going up and down like that so many times, like the adrenaline just, your hormones are just spiking and dropping the whole time. Whereas like a lot of wrestlers, they'll just like take naps in between their matches, and it's like
He's never been that kid. Even when he was little, he never did.
I'm always the kid who's out
but
there
still, either
watching.
way, like you have to learn how to like calm yourself back down, just like, listen to some music or something relaxing, and like, just you can't stay hyped up the entire day.
Absolutely.
Which like a lot of people really fall into that trap, especially CrossFitters who haven't done other, competitions before. So like that's been one of the things that for me was like hugely beneficial, was just like you don't even think about it, because it's just like what you do for the last how many years of your life. So it was like you're completely used to it, and you don't have that like as big of emotional swing. So I think like the physiological side of it's one thing, and then you have the psychological aspect of like when you walk out there, it's you, and if you lose, it was because it was your fault.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's watching it. And so like relatively speaking, when you go out on a CrossFit floor, it's like no one's trying to hurt you. They're just trying to race faster than you. So it's like, it'll hurt, but at least like I'm in control of like myself. So it's
I always tell people, one of the big differences that I see between wrestling and CrossFit, which there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
As a coach, is that number one, when you go into a CrossFit competition, like let's say that me and you were in a competition, we're competing against each other, but we're really not.
Yeah.
You can only do so much. So as a coach, like it's actually has been easier for me when I was his coach to coach him for CrossFit rather than wrestling.
Because you can stay in your own lane.
Yeah.
And you know what you're going to do.
Nobody's out there trying to stop you from doing anything.
Yeah.
So I think that for wrestling, our relationship's really grown as far as like me being a dad, me being a coach and whatnot for him. I've stepped back from the coaching role the last couple of years, not done as much of it, but I think that we've really grown in that aspect, and I think that CrossFit has really helped me do that. Number one, because of just personal reasons as far as like when I struggle in a workout or something, whereas before I was as serious about CrossFit or any other type of working out, it's pretty much really easy to tell your kid to do something, but a lot of times you see, and unfortunately it is in the wrestling world. Unfortunately, it is in the wrestling world where a lot of people that can't do those things are trying to force their kid or their athlete to do things.
Yeah.
Whereas like whenever I'm coaching him for CrossFit or even Jaci, like I'm going through it, so I know what it takes a little bit.
Right.
and I think that that's helped a lot as well for just the CrossFit side of things. And even just being a more supportive father, to be honest, so.
Yeah. I feel like that's where like generally people are like they have like their biggest passions in life is like where they've gone through something and now they get, if they're like in a interpersonal like profession of some kind, like where you like work with people,
Yep.
right? Like if you are working with like, postpartum people, it's like you probably had like a really tough postpartum or something. And that's like why you wanted to get into that. Or, there's this like line in The Office where like, I forget exactly what Ryan Howard says, what he's like, oh yeah, all these therapists have their own problems essentially. And
Psychiatrists tend to be more crazy than their patients.
that's like how it is for everything. It's like if you struggle with something, like you want to help other people get through that. Like
Absolutely.
I've had, lots of knee injuries. So if someone has a knee injury, I have an athlete who has an injury. It's like I can relate to them a lot. So I think it's a very similar thing. It's like as a coach, like you can see, like I know what it's like to go through hard CrossFit workouts and to like go through the process of like hard training and how you can feel. So then you can like relate to other people and have a lot of empathy for them.
I agree 100%.
So Jaci, what's worse, watching wrestling or CrossFit?
Oh, wrestling. God bless America. I'm the worst mom ever. Like, I'm in the bleachers, I'm standing up, I'm literally visibly sweating.
She
I
actually
cover my
screams louder
eyes.
than me.
I'm the loudest person there.
If you ever pay attention to her whoop, she'll have like
It'll give me functional fitness activity, I swear.
Like
Sometimes
7 minutes of box fitness.
And he
Actually, just
doesn't
his
make it
wrestling match.
easier. Like, so his semifinals match at States, he lost 1-0.
No, geez.
His quarterfinals match, he won 1-0. Like, he don't make it like ever easy. It's to the last 15 seconds of the quarterfinals. I watched like this.
And
That's what I did.
the
'cause, like,
semifinal match, he was in on a takedown as time
the last
expired.
15 seconds.
And
Like, it was
the whole
horrible.
match was back and forth. But I think that CrossFit training, and specifically since he started working with you, I think that I've noticed a little bit more of a difference. And that on the wrestling side of things, his strength numbers have obviously went up. His gymnastics has gone up. So pound for pound, he's getting stronger, as well. And I think a lot of that I can, give credit to you.
Yeah, he hasn't lost anybody that I'm like, that kid just straight stronger than him, except maybe one kid.
And he's also in that phase now of like, look at that little dirty mustache he's getting there, so he's definitely growing now. But I've enjoyed stepping back from the coaching aspect and putting it into somebody's hands that I trust and kind of watching him grow. Even though I did get mad at him before Fittest of the Coast, he'll probably tell you, the one workout that had the C2 bike.
Yeah.
So when he finished,
you couldn't have done it any better.
Testing it, I told him my advice on it, and he was like, "I can't do that." And I was like, "All right, well, that's what I think you need to do." And then literally a day later, you told him the same thing, and
he did it then
He
when he
came up
went
to me
there.
and he asked me for my advice. I was like, "Don't ask my advice." I was like, "Ben told you the same thing I told you. That's why we have him as your coach."
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie though, when you're out on the competition floor, like the adrenaline, like when we were training it, like the pace that I was that you said, I'm like, holy crap, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that. Mm-hmm. Then when I got on the floor, I was going like 200 calories per hour faster, and I'm like, this isn't good. It's about to be a plane crash right in that third round.
But that was the workout though that you ended up passing like 2 or 3 kids at the end.
It would be, I'd start the workout, fall way behind on the bike, sandbag, would pass like so many people, and then the pull-ups, especially because that's like my
Just
stuff.
needed more pull-ups.
Yeah, just more
fly through.
gymnastics in general.
I thought it was
Yeah.
weird they gave the teens pull-ups, but I was in intermediate and I had bar muscle-ups. I was like, why would you expect an intermediate to have bar muscle-ups, but
Yeah.
not the teen RX version?
Yeah, Justin and I were kind of talking about this with like, this is maybe a different podcast, but for like the teen programming,
teen
it seems
boy,
like
too.
there's a significant difference, especially post-puberty, but even before that, of like male, female pulling and just like gymnastics capacity as a whole. Like strength to body weight ratio is just physiologically different. So it's like you almost need different set of tests for young, more like like the teen boy divisions and the teen girl divisions.
Yeah.
And we're obviously biased as well, because gymnastics is what he's really good at.
But you like the goal is to like kind of push each of those to where it's like an appropriate level of challenge. And it didn't feel like an appropriate level of challenge with the rep scheme and the movements that they picked.
Yeah. I agree.
Overall, though, it was like strength pulled, like the strength number I thought he had was like, whoa. And then the gymnastics, I was like, what?
Right. And that's what I mean. It's like, it doesn't look like that those two were balanced, right? Whereas if it was like the weights were lower and the gymnastics was lower, it's like, okay, it's just like a shorter sprinting workout. And they're just being a little bit more conservative for the kids. And that's fine. But it just didn't feel that way.
Yeah, I agree. There was a lot of positives to take away from that, though. Number one, it was a really good RAN event. Number two, all those kids did amazing in the open. So it kind of legitimized like the kids that you beat and the kids that you competed against there.
Literally the three kids that made it on the podium were like in contention to make the games now, and it makes me feel that like just like fix up the small mistakes and I can do it.
So what do you got on your radar? What's your goal for the CrossFit season this year?
Well, I definitely want to make the semis because the semis this year is like equivalent to like the quarterfinals last year. But I want to be a CrossFit teen athlete. Like I want to be in the games and I want to be like a competitor there. But I realized for that to happen, I'm going to have to improve my strength numbers because like that's where I fall behind on the teen aspect.
Mm-hmm. I feel like you're a good balance of like understanding that like, hey, I am very good at like certain aspects of the sport. And there's these other things that like, if I do want to continue to push my competitive level, like I'm going to have to continue to work and develop on those things. Whereas like, I think a lot of people, especially when they're younger into a competitive sport, it's like, they're either like, I'm amazing or like, oh man, I have so many areas that I'm not great at. And like their confidence isn't there. And it's like to have that balanced like mindset, which I feel like you're pretty good with is like pretty rare in my opinion.
Yeah, it's, well, when you have workouts that you're like top 15 in the world, you're like, man, you feel really good. But then you have a workout 500th and you're like, no, let's call the confidence there.
For him too, we talk about a lot of things as far as like realistic expectations on things. Because I actually do. I'm obviously his father, so again, I'm very biased with this. I do believe that he can make it to the games in the teen division, especially since they expanded it a little bit. I think that it's going to be based on programming, though.
Yeah.
Anything heavy that comes out. Nope,
just fitness level. Just fitness.
But I think if he gets a good set of programming for him, I think that he could do it. Now, what happens there, I don't know. But I also, if he doesn't make it, I think that for him, would I rather see him make it now or 8 years from now? The answer is 8 years from now. So that's where, again, balancing things and looking at the long-term picture, and being realistic with where you're at, and you're going to develop more, in your later teens, early 20s, mid 20s, and it seems like males in general develop later. So,
yeah, I think for, again, anybody who's younger in their career that I'm coaching, but especially younger athletes, it's like just not getting like so excited about the thing that's like immediately in front of you that you just kind of like lose like the long-term picture, or just like having like a kid tell you like, oh, these are my goals, and then just like completely taking that and like just pushing them towards that, because then it's like oftentimes you get, like you were saying in wrestling season, I'm halfway through it, I'm kind of done with this. It's like you can very easily get to that point in your CrossFit training if you're just like, oh yeah, we're really pushing you and we're doing like all these metcons all the time. You're just like, oh, I'm just dragging, I'm tired. And it's like, even if you're in good shape, like that's just not fun. Yeah. And then also like for you, like that's not going to be the things that like set you up for success like 3 to 5 years down the line.
Exactly.
Another thing that we do, that I do, and this is actually probably a little bit more towards Jaci, but it's still same thing with Dubby, is that a lot of times we sit down and we talk about their goals, and trying to not base your goals on a specific result. I'm really big on, listen, sometimes let's take the open this year for an example. For me personally, this was the worst open that I've ever had. I also am dealing with an ankle injury. I had the flu the first week.
Oh, gosh.
Now I'm really big on, and they'll tell you, is not making excuses for that.
Yeah.
Like if you make it to the state championship match and you have the flu, what are you going to do? Forfeit? No, you're going to go out there and you're still going to do what
You're going to get out there and you're going to give it to him.
But like with Jaci, she fell into the trap that I was in when I first started CrossFit and putting more of your worth into a result.
Yeah.
And like sometimes somebody's just better than you, and like you've really improved and you've even closed the gap, but the result don't show that.
Yep.
So when we go into like a competition or anything, especially with Jaci, is because I'm still her coach, is I try to set performance expectations or goals rather than a result. So, and I think that since we've been doing more of that, you've gotten a lot better, and I think you have too, Dubby. But that's where I try to put more of the focus rather than a result.
Yeah, and I think everyone's got like, I said, everyone that is like gonna get to a high level in sport, they obviously have like, these are my aspirations in the sport long term. Like I want to, if you're a games athlete, it's like, okay, I want to podium at the games, or I want to win the games one day, and it's like but like I think day to day it's not super helpful to like think about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like whereas like or like even when you're out on the floor, like if you're just thinking about like, oh, I'm trying to win, like that's only helpful if you have like the best fitness of everybody there.
Yeah.
Where it's like
Fraser.
yeah, like literally like very, very, very few, like the select names that are like the only people that can do that, and the rest of the people have to like find a way where you can focus on the things that are actually going to get you to your best performance.
Yep.
Like more of that process oriented goals, and not even just that, but it's also like the ones that like the things that continue to like pull you back into like your own performance versus like external things that are out of your control. Like whether you go to the games or not could be dictated as to like what other people do with like the semifinal, right?
Yeah,
like
what
their scores are on the workouts will 100% matter, and it's something that you can't control, where it's like, okay, my break strategy on these toes bar, that's something that's in your control.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that also like helps your performance. So the more you can kind of reinforce that is 100% the way to go. Any last words for us, Dubby?
Not really that I can think of off the top of my head.
Hoping for some good programming in the
Yeah,
quarterfinals.
hoping for some good programming.
Some else.
Not.
I was just gonna say, I looked this morning at next week's programming. I like what I see. I don't know if he does though.
You didn't like the
I haven't looked, so I'm a little bit nervous.
But that's one of the things too, is that like it's not just all me like looking at him and seeing things that we need to work on, is having you there to to guide that ship now, and then obviously to do that programming and give feedback and whatnot. That's one of the areas that obviously has been exposed that, okay, we realize that now, so we just need to get better there. And obviously that's kind of the name game, is just shoring up all those gaps and being the best overall and most fit you can be. So
yeah, if there'd be L6 in the quarterfinals, I'd probably cry.
I don't see L6 in the quarterfinals, buddy.
TBD, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, either way, I'm excited to see you do your thing and throw down.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's time for us to do a whole bunch of running and rowing and burpees.
Yeah. I actually feel like that's one thing that I've been getting better on is the rower. Like, the row, like anymore, it doesn't feel like it's as much of a challenge. Don't get me wrong, it's still a challenge, but like, it's not like I can
Higher level
start
of
to get through
comfortability
it
on it.
quicker, and it's not as taxing, I guess.
Yeah. I think sometimes it's just a matter of like building some time on it, get comfortable with it.
That and
Yeah.
just overall strength too.
Or doing
Yeah.
some 5K rows.
You programmed that when we first started working with you, and he was like, "Oh my goodness, Dad."
He's like, did you see this?
But the nice thing was then the Fittest of the Coast qualifier, he had something to go off of there for that first workout.
That's one of the main reasons I use that, is because like even more so than 2K, it's like 5K and like the typical like 15-20 minute AMRAP that you're gonna see like a rower in CrossFit. It's like that's like the sweet spot for like where you want to be a lot of times in pace. So
Absolutely.
it's one of the main reasons we use that.
Yeah, I've used it for most of my pacing now. Like if the open workout, I went right around my 5K pace, like just to keep it a steady pace the whole workout.
Sweet, guys. Well, we got to wrap it up here and go into our next session.
Get to it.
So thanks for coming on.
Yep.
Thanks for having us. Yep.
Thanks for listening today. If you're someone who just started listening to the show, I would encourage you to subscribe so you can stay up to date. If you're someone who's been listening for a while, I would encourage you to rate and review the show. And lastly, the best thing that you can do to support our work is also the best thing that you can do for your performance. And that is by hiring one of our coaches. Until next time, stay the course.